The sand isn't sand, it's volcanic ash. Black. Fine as coffee grounds. Every step sinks. Every breath tastes like sulfur. The sound is what hits you first. The crack of rifle fire. The metallic clang of bullets hitting steel. The wet thump of rounds hitting something softer. Somewhere in the gray smoke, a Sherman tank sits idling. Silent. Useless. Its shells have been bouncing off reinforced concrete for an hour. The Japanese pillboxes are dug into the earth like tumors. Interconnected. Reinforced. Designed by a general who knew the Americans were coming and spent months turning this island into a graveyard. 70 pounds of pressurized fuel. That's what it weighs. The M2 flamethrower. 7 seconds of fire. Maybe 9 if you're lucky, and a life expectancy of 4 minutes. And in the middle of that hell, one Marine walked forward with a flamethrower. His name was Hershel Williams. And this is how he survived. Before we dive into one of the most intense Medal of Honor actions in Marine Corps history, if you're here because you want real stories, not Hollywood versions, hit that subscribe button. This channel exists to tell the hidden stories of the people who walked through the worst humanity can offer and somehow made it out the other side. Now let's rewind. February 23rd, 1945. The same day, the flag went up on Mount Suribachi. While photographers were capturing the most famous image of World War II on that volcanic peak, a few miles north, near Airfield Number Two, the 21st Marines were stuck. Not pinned down, stuck. There's a difference. Pinned down means you're taking fire and can't move. Stuck means you've got tanks, you've got air support, you've got naval gunfire, and none of it matters because the enemy built their defenses so well that every weapon you throw at them just bounces off. That's what was happening at Airfield Number Two. A network of 7 reinforced concrete pillboxes, each one connected by tunnels, each one designed to cover the others, each one manned by Japanese soldiers who had been told they would never leave this island alive. And they believed it. The American advance had stopped cold. Commanders were getting desperate. They'd thrown everything at these positions. Naval bombardment, airstrikes, tank rounds, satchel charges. Nothing worked. The concrete was too thick. The angles were too perfect. The defenders too determined. That's when a commander asked for a volunteer. Someone willing to take a flamethrower forward. And a 21-year-old Marine from West Virginia, 5'6", quiet, built like a farm kid, because he was one, said 2 words, "I'll try." Those 2 words would change everything. Hershel Woodrow Williams. Everyone called him Woody. Born October 2nd, 1923, in Quiet Dell, West Virginia, a town so small it barely shows up on maps, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where your reputation was built on hard work and keeping your word. He grew up in the hills, farming, hunting, the kind of childhood where you learned to fix things because there was no one else to call. You learned to be tough because softness didn't grow crops or feed livestock. The work was brutal. Dawn to dusk. No days off, no complaints. It built something in him. A quiet resilience. The ability to endure discomfort without breaking. He wasn't particularly tall, wasn't particularly loud, didn't stand out in a crowd, but he had something that couldn't be taught. Determination. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, Woody was 18 years old. Like thousands of other young American men, he wanted to serve, wanted to do his part. He wanted to join the Marines. The Marines had a reputation. They were the toughest, the most disciplined, the first to fight. But there was a problem. He was too short, 5'6". The Marine Corps had a minimum height requirement of 5'8". They didn't make exceptions. Not in 1942, not when they had more volunteers than they could process. So they turned him away. Imagine that moment. You're ready to serve your country. ready to put your life on the line. And you're told you're not big enough. Woody went home, kept working, kept waiting, but he didn't give up. And then, in May 1943, the Marine Corps lowered the height requirement. Woody didn't wait. He enlisted immediately. There's something quietly prophetic about that rejection. The idea that the man who would go on to perform one of the most physically and mentally grueling acts of heroism in Marine Corps history was initially told he wasn't big enough. But size doesn't measure what matters in combat. Endurance does. Willpower does. The ability to keep moving when every survival instinct in your body is screaming at you to stop. Woody had all of that. He completed training at Camp Elliott in California. The drill instructors broke men down and rebuilt them as Marines. The heat, the discipline, the relentless physical demands. Woody thrived. He was assigned to the 21st Marines, 3rd Marine Division. He trained with the Flamethrower, a weapon most Marines avoided because everyone knew what happened to the guy carrying it. But someone had to do it. Woody volunteered. He became very, very good with it. He understood the weapon's limitations, its range, its fuel capacity, the tactics required to use it effectively without getting killed. He practiced over and over until the Flamethrower became an extension of his body. And in February 1945, he landed on Iwo Jima. He had no idea what was waiting for him. Iwo Jima is a tiny island, 8 square miles, shaped like a pork chop, volcanic rock and ash, no fresh water, no trees, nothing valuable, except its location. It sat directly between the Mariana Islands, where American B-29 bombers were based, and mainland Japan, which meant Japanese fighters based on Iwo Jima could intercept American bombers on their way to Tokyo. And it meant damaged American bombers had nowhere to land on the way back. They'd limp across the Pacific, leaking fuel, engines failing, crew members bleeding out in the fuselage, and then ditch in the ocean or crash. Hundreds of airmen were dying this way. Shot up over Japan, making it halfway home and then going down in the water. But if the Americans could take Iwo Jima, it would become an emergency landing strip, a fighter escort base, a refueling station. It would save thousands of American airmen. The strategic value was undeniable. So the decision was made. Take the island. The plan was simple. Land, overwhelm the defenses, secure the airfields, done in 5 days. The intelligence report said the Japanese had about 13,000 defenders. The Americans would land with over 70,000 Marines, 3 divisions, overwhelming force. It should have been straightforward. The reality? 36 days of some of the most brutal fighting in the Pacific War. 7,000 Americans dead, nearly 20,000 wounded, and almost every single Japanese defender, 21,000 men, not 13,000, died on that island. The intelligence was wrong. The timeline was wrong. Everything was wrong. Because their commander, General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, had done something unprecedented. He abandoned the old Japanese strategy of meeting the Americans at the beach. No more banzai charges, no more suicidal attacks. Instead, he dug in. Miles of tunnels, reinforced bunkers, interlocking fields of fire. Positions designed so that even if you destroyed one, the others could still kill you. He told his men they would never leave the island alive. Their job wasn't to win. It was to kill as many Americans as possible before they died. He turned Iwo Jima into a fortress, and the Marines walked into it on February 19, 1945. Imagine landing on a beach where the sand isn't sand. It's volcanic ash, black, loose. Every step, your boots sink 6 inches. You can't run. You can barely walk. You're carrying 60 pounds of gear, rifle, ammunition, water, rations, grenades, and you're climbing a terrace of volcanic ash at a 45-degree angle while people are shooting at you. And the Japanese aren't shooting at you from the beach. They're shooting at you from inside the island. Kuribayashi's strategy was brilliant and terrifying. He didn't waste men on suicidal banzai charges. He didn't put his troops where naval gunfire and airstrikes could kill them. He put them underground. The Japanese spent months carving out a network of tunnels, bunkers, and fighting positions. Some of the tunnels were large enough to move artillery pieces through. Some were so deep that American bombs couldn't touch them. Multi-level, climate-controlled, stocked with ammunition, food, and water. It was an underground fortress, and the pillboxes, those reinforced concrete bunkers, were engineering marvels of death. Thick walls, small firing slits, camouflaged with volcanic rocks so you couldn't see them until you were already in their kill zone. They were positioned to cover each other. If you attacked one bunker, the others could shoot you in the flank or the back. And they were connected by tunnels, which meant that even if you cleared a bunker, if you somehow got inside and killed everyone, Japanese soldiers could move through the tunnels and reoccupy it from below. You'd clear the same bunker 3 times in one day. It was a nightmare. The Marines had tanks. The Sherman tanks would roll forward, fire their 75mm guns at the pillboxes, and the shells would bounce off. The concrete was too thick. The angles were too good. The Japanese engineers had done their homework. Flamethrower tanks were brought up, mechanical beasts designed to spew fire into bunkers. But the terrain was too rough. The volcanic ash too loose. The tanks would get stuck, or they'd break down, or they'd get hit by Japanese anti-tank guns hidden in caves. High explosive charges were tried. Satchel charges, canvas bags filled with 20 pounds of TNT, were thrown into bunkers. Sometimes they worked. Sometimes the Japanese threw them back out before they exploded. The Marines were dying by the hundreds, every day. By February 23rd, 4 days into the battle, the 21st Marines were stuck near Airfield Number Two. 7 pillboxes, all operational, all manned, all covering each other. The tanks couldn't do it. Artillery couldn't do it. Airstrikes couldn't do it. Someone had to walk up to those bunkers. And that's when they asked for a volunteer with a flamethrower. Let's talk about what it meant to carry a flamethrower in combat. The M22 flamethrower weighed 70 pounds when fully loaded. 2 tanks of fuel strapped to your back, a hose, a nozzle, an ignition system. You looked like a walking bomb because you were. The fuel tanks contained a mixture of gasoline and diesel, highly flammable, under pressure. If a bullet hit those fuel tanks, if a piece of shrapnel punctured them, you didn't just die. You burned, in front of your friends, screaming. Everyone knew this, which is why flamethrower operators had a life expectancy of 4 minutes in combat. 4 minutes. That's not a metaphor. That's not an exaggeration. That's the statistical average based on combat data from the Pacific Theater. The Japanese knew what that weapon could do. They'd seen it. They'd felt it. They knew that if a Marine with a flamethrower got close enough to a bunker, everyone inside was dead. So they targeted flamethrower operators first, always. Every sniper, every machine gunner, every rifleman. If you saw the flamethrower, you shot at the flamethrower. It was doctrine. Kill the flamethrower operator before he kills you. And the weapon itself? It gave you 7 to 9 seconds of fire. That's it. You'd pull the trigger, and a jet of burning fuel would shoot out 60 feet. The heat was so intense, it would suck the oxygen out of bunkers. The flames would seep into ventilation shafts, into tunnel entrances, into any crack or gap. But you only had seconds, which meant you had to get close, real close. Close enough that the enemy could see your face. Close enough that you could see theirs. Close enough that if you missed, if your aim was off by a few feet, you just wasted your only weapon, and you were standing in front of a pillbox full of men with machine guns. The psychological weight of that is almost impossible to describe. You're walking toward a fortified position filled with men who want to kill you. You're carrying a weapon that makes you the primary target. And you know that statistically, you have 4 minutes to live. The standard doctrine was to assign a fire team to protect the flamethrower operator, 4 riflemen. Their job was to suppress enemy fire, keep the operator alive long enough to get the job done. They'd move with him, lay down covering fire, try to keep enemy heads down. But even with protection, most flamethrower operators didn't make it. On February 23rd, Woody Williams was assigned 4 riflemen. 2 of them would die protecting him. Their names were Corporal Warren Newton and Private Charles Fisher. Remember those names, because without them, Woody wouldn't have survived the first 30 seconds. It's mid-afternoon. February 23rd, 1945. The same day the flag went up on Mount Suribachi. But down here, near Airfield Number Two, there are no photographers, no iconic moments, just Marines trying not to die. Woody Williams volunteers. They strap the M2 flamethrower to his back. 70 pounds. The tanks are full. The hose is checked. The ignition system is good. He's assigned 4 riflemen. They fan out around him. They know the job. They know the odds. Nobody says much. What is there to say? The first pillbox is ahead. Maybe 50 yards, reinforced concrete, firing slit, facing the American lines. You can see the muzzle flashes from the machine gun inside. Between Woody and that pillbox, open ground, volcanic ash, no cover, and a minefield. The Japanese had mined the approaches. Everyone knew it. You could see the disturbed earth where the mines had been buried, but there was no other way. Woody got down on his stomach, started crawling, 70 pounds of fuel on his back, inches above mines that could blow him apart. He used smoke, shell craters, anything that blocked line of sight from the bunker. The riflemen moved with him, firing, suppressing, keeping the Japanese heads down. It took 10 minutes to reach the first pillbox. 10 minutes of crawling through ash and mines while bullets snapped overhead. He circled around to the side, the blind spot, the place where the machine gun couldn't pivot to hit him. Then he stood up, aimed the nozzle at the firing slit, pulled the trigger. A jet of flame shot into the bunker. The sound, it wasn't a roar, it was a hiss, a high-pitched scream of pressurized fuel igniting. The flames poured into the firing slit, into the ventilation shaft, into every gap in the concrete. Inside that bunker, the temperature went from tropical heat to 2,000 degrees in seconds. The Japanese soldiers inside didn't have time to scream. 1 bunker down. Woody's fuel was almost empty, maybe 1 second left. He ran back to the American lines, refueled, grabbed a fresh flamethrower, then he went back out. The second pillbox was harder. The Japanese had seen what happened to the first one. They were ready. Machine gun fire ripped across the ash. Bullets snapped past Woody's head. One grazed his helmet. Another tore through his pack. One of his riflemen, Corporal Warren Newton, was hit. He went down, kept firing from the ground, covering Woody. Woody reached the pillbox, found the ventilation pipe on top. He didn't aim at the door this time. He stuck the nozzle directly into the pipe, into the lungs of the bunker, pulled the trigger. The fire poured straight down into the bunker. The entire position was neutralized in seconds. 2 bunkers down. Newton was dead by now. Woody went back, refueled again. 3rd bunker, 4th bunker. Each time the process was the same. Crawl, suppress, flank, burn. But the Japanese were adapting. They'd seen the pattern. They knew how Woody was moving. They started anticipating his approach. At the 5th pillbox, 2 soldiers rushed out with fixed bayonets. They came fast, running through the ash, screaming. Woody's fuel was low. Maybe 2 seconds of fire left. They charged. Woody aimed, pulled the trigger. The flames hit them at point-blank range. The psychological impact of that weapon, seeing a wall of fire coming at you, was as deadly as the heat itself. They went down. Woody ran back, refueled, fifth bunker down. By now, Private Charles Fisher, the second rifleman, was dead. 2 men had died keeping Woody alive. 2 men who had families, who had futures, who volunteered to protect a flamethrower operator because someone had to. Woody kept going. 6th pillbox, 7th pillbox, 4 hours. 4 hours of crawling through minefields, refueling, charging bunkers, burning men alive, watching his friends die. 4 hours of being the primary target of every Japanese soldier in the sector. And somehow, he made it back. By the time he stumbled into the American lines, covered in soot and ash and sweat, the sun was setting. 7 pillboxes destroyed. 7 enemy positions neutralized. The advance could continue, but the cost was written on Woody's face. Here's the question everyone asks. How did he live? Flamethrower operators had a 4-minute life expectancy. Woody was out there for 4 hours. 4 hours. The answer isn't luck. It's tactics. It's training. It's willpower. First, he used dead zones. Every machine gun has an arc of fire, a limited range of motion. The gun can only pivot so far before it hits the wall of the bunker. If you can get outside that arc, if you can flank the bunker, get to the side or the top, the gun can't hit you. Woody understood this instinctively. He didn't charge straight at the pillboxes like some Hollywood hero. He circled. He used terrain. He moved through the blind spots. He'd approach from angles the Japanese didn't expect. From the side. From above. Never the same way, twice. Second, smoke. The battlefield was covered in smoke from explosions, burning vehicles and artillery. The volcanic ash itself created dust clouds with every explosion. Woody used that smoke as concealment. He timed his movements, waited for the right moment, then moved fast. He understood that visibility was survival. Third, his riflemen. Warren Newton and Charles Fisher died keeping him alive, but their suppressive fire, those bursts of rifle fire that forced the Japanese to stay down, to keep their heads inside the bunker, gave Woody the seconds he needed to get close. Without them, he would have died in the first 30 seconds. They sacrificed everything so he could complete the mission. Fourth, Japanese fuses. Some of the grenades thrown at Woody didn't detonate. Some of the mortar rounds that landed near him were duds. Was that luck? Yes. But in war, survival is often a combination of skill and the enemy's equipment failing at the right time. The Japanese manufacturing infrastructure was collapsing by 1945. Quality control was deteriorating. Munitions were being produced with inferior materials. Some of those failures saved Woody's life. Fifth, terrain awareness. Woody grew up in the hills of West Virginia. He understood terrain, how to use it, how to read it. On Iwo Jima, he used every shell crater, every piece of wreckage, every undulation in the volcanic ash to his advantage. He moved like someone who'd spent his whole life reading landscapes. And sixth, endurance. 4 hours, 6 different flamethrowers. Repeated runs back to the American lines to refuel. Each time, he had to cross open ground. Each time, he was exposed to enemy fire. Most men would have collapsed from exhaustion, from fear, from the sheer weight of carrying 70 pounds of fuel across volcanic ash while being shot at. Woody didn't stop. That farm kid toughness, that quiet resilience built from years of hard work in the West Virginia hills, carried him through. That's not luck. That's will. When Woody finally stumbled back to the Marine lines after 4 hours, he was covered in soot, sweat, and hydraulic oil. His hands were blistered from the heat of the flamethrower nozzle. His uniform was scorched. His face was blank, exhausted. And he realized something. He was the only one from his immediate support team who wasn't wounded or dead. Warren Newton, Charles Fisher, both gone. The men who had kept him alive. The men who had given everything so he could complete the mission. Woody didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a survivor. And sometimes that's a harder thing to carry. General Graves B. Erskine, commander of the 3rd Marine Division, personally recommended Woody for the Medal of Honor. The citation was written. The witnesses were interviewed. The paperwork was processed. On October 5, 1945, months after the battle, after the war had ended, Woody Williams stood in the White House. President Harry S. Truman placed the Medal of Honor around his neck. The citation read that he had demonstrated outstanding valor and leadership and had single-handedly destroyed 7 enemy pillboxes while under intense hostile fire. The president shook his hand. Photographers took pictures. It was official. But Woody never talked about it like that. He always talked about the men who covered him, the men who died so he could get close enough to do the job. He never considered himself the hero of that day. He carried that weight with him for the rest of his life. After the war, Woody went home to West Virginia. He worked. He raised a family. He didn't talk much about Iwo Jima. For decades, he lived a quiet life. But something shifted as he got older. He realized that the men who died, Warren Newton, Charles Fisher, and thousands of others, were being forgotten. Their families were aging. The Gold Star mothers and fathers who had lost sons were passing away. The memory of their sacrifice was fading. So Woody started something. He founded the Hershel Woody Williams Medal of Honor Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to honoring Gold Star families, the families of service members killed in action. He raised money to build monuments, Gold Star Family Memorial Monuments, simple, dignified structures in towns across America, places where families could go to remember, places where the names of the fallen would never be forgotten. He traveled the country, spoke at schools, memorials, veteran events, not to talk about himself, to talk about the men who didn't come home. He attended Medal of Honor ceremonies. He met with other recipients. He became a living link to World War II, a reminder of what that generation had endured. And slowly, the number of World War II Medal of Honor recipients dwindled. One by one, they passed away, until only Woody was left, the last one. On June 29, 2022, Hershel Woody Williams passed away at the age of 98. He was the last surviving Medal of Honor recipient from World War II, the last of his generation, the last man who could say, "I was there." His funeral was held at the U.S. Capitol. He lay in honor in the rotunda, a rare distinction reserved for the most honored Americans. Thousands came to pay their respects. Veterans, active duty service members, Gold Star families, ordinary Americans who wanted to say thank you. And when they lowered his casket into the ground, a chapter of American history closed with him. 7 bunkers, 4 hours, 70 pounds of fuel, and a 5'6" Marine from West Virginia who walked through hell because someone had to. Woody Williams didn't survive Iwo Jima because he was lucky. He survived because he understood something most people never have to learn. That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward anyway, to keep crawling through the minefield, to keep refueling, to keep going back out even when your friends are dying, even when every instinct tells you to stop. He kept going, not for glory, not for recognition, not for a medal. He kept going because men were counting on him, because the mission mattered, because if he didn't do it, someone else would have to, and they might not make it back. That's the reality of combat that Hollywood never quite captures. It's not about being fearless. It's about being terrified and doing it anyway. It's about watching your friends die and continuing the mission because that's what they would have wanted. It's about carrying that weight for the rest of your life. Woody carried it with grace, with humility, with a relentless dedication to honoring the men who didn't survive. And 77 years later, we remember why. We remember Warren Newton, Charles Fisher, the 4 riflemen who protected him, the 7,000 Marines who died on that island. We remember them because Woody refused to let them be forgotten. That's the real legacy. Not just the 7 pillboxes, not just the 4 hours of hell, but the 77 years he spent after the war making sure America never forgot the price that was paid. If this story mattered to you, if you believe these stories need to be told, subscribe, share this video. These men deserve to be remembered for more than a paragraph in a history book. They deserve to be remembered as human beings who faced impossible odds and did their duty anyway. Thanks for watching. And remember the ones who didn't make it back. Their names deserve to echo louder than the gunfire that took them.